Bodybuilders are an interesting population, but would you date one? Now, as a male, you're probably thinking, sure, I'd date a female bodybuilder, what's not to like? They have a great body, they're generally driven, and they kind of take care of themselves. But as a female talking about a male, I think things might change a little bit. Considering how much we eat, train, the drugs we might take, as well as the changes in body composition and the mood fluctuations that can come with those body composition changes. Well, here's the thing. I found out from lots of different females for you, so you can come to the conclusion whether females truly think bodybuilders are attractive or not. And in this video, I hope to provide not only personal anecdotes from females that I've asked and videos that they've given me, but also I want to fall back on some science and relate it to what generally females might assume when they think of a bodybuilder. First and foremost, let's talk about exactly what a bodybuilder is, because I don't think many people clearly understand what that definition really means. Maybe people think about bodybuilder as sort of an athlete or a physique model, somebody who simply just appears on a magazine cover, or somebody who has a six-pack abs without really any other muscle definition. There's a big difference between a fitness model and a bodybuilder. Typically, a bodybuilder is very self-driven. I mean, not in a good way. They almost want to be selfish towards their own goals of personal perfection. And as weird as it sounds to say, bodybuilders are a form of a non-athletic athlete, which is super weird. We eat a ton of food. We have extreme time demands. I mean, if you just think about the amount of food we're eating, 4 to 6 meals a day, sometimes 7, plus 2 hours or so of training, plus cooking the food. Time left to do the simple things is pretty much just not even there. Not even to mention hygiene, the burping, the farting, the absolute distressed guts that most of us have and bloated stomachs in the off season, the mouth breathing, the sleep apnea, all those things that I think are pretty unattractive and honestly a point of insecurity for a lot of bodybuilders are part of what a bodybuilder is. It's an all-inclusive sport in the sense that it consumes one's being. It's not just something you do momentarily, it is a lifestyle that you must follow. So when I asked females about what they thought of bodybuilders, I had this really interesting result, which was that most females had an appeal towards a bodybuilder, but when asked what their definitions of bodybuilders were, they weren't what I consider a bodybuilder. So let's get down to business. What are the females saying? Let's check it out.
Do I find bodybuilders attractive?
I find bodybuilders extremely attractive.
Physically, most of the time, yes.
I do find bodybuilders incredibly attractive.
They are attractive. Yes, because sexy muscles.
Yes. No.
So you can pretty easily come to the conclusion that yes, women in general find bodybuilders attractive, but more conclusively, a statement that you hear many times is that they find muscles attractive. But as it relates to their personalities,
and now what you look for when you're old is somebody that not only takes care of themselves, but can also take care of you and have capacity, be in a good relationship, and offer some of their time and energy to you too.
It seems that when the female actually has a time to get to know a bodybuilder, that they're actually less attracted to them. And why might this be? Well, I think there's many conclusions one could come up with, but let's actually look at some pretty clear research that's relatively new about female attraction. So this meta-analysis is called Sex Differences in Sexual Attraction for Aesthetics, Resources, Personalities Across Age. And this meta-analysis goes in really deep about what do the sexes find generally attractive in another form of sex. And there's so much to dig into, and I highly suggest that you read this. It's open access, so you can read it right now just by Googling it. But let's touch on it. What it seems like, and I think between you and I watching this right now, we might already have this intuition, but females generally care more about resources, intelligence, and education compared to someone's physical stature, attractiveness, or any other feature. And males are quite the opposite. And what's scary is this was done in such a large population, it's hard hard to argue these results, but males, yes, you and I, generally find females more attractive based on their actual physical features, their physical stature, their true attractiveness, and things like their intelligence or resourcefulness are way down the pipeline as far as what features are actually attractive. So why does the group of females that I asked have a weird particular bias? Well, here's the thing. I think every female group has a niche, similar to how we have niches and interests. Females and males have niches of attraction. You'll find males who are interested in the anime girls or waifus. You'll find other males who are interested in girls with piercings or tattoos, and you'll sure find males that like girls with BBLs or the Kim Kardashian look. And likewise, I think you'll find females who generally like the dad bod, females who like a more muscular body, females who actually find a different array of males completely obtuse to the standard attractive. And it's also just about finding those niches for you, but I'll tie up some loose ends with that a little bit later on. But part of it is that my following and a lot of the females that I know who are included in this video do have a particular interest within this circle of fitness and health. I think another part of it is a lack of experience, because I asked a lot of females about this and some of them were totally okay with me featuring videos in this video, but some weren't, and many of the ones who weren't had bad experiences in relationships with bodybuilders. And their stories were very much the same, that a bodybuilder is very self-interested and they have very direct goals, but goals that relate to themselves as opposed to most other people. Simultaneously, their emotions can be quite volatile. They can be happy and sad, or they can be aggressive or chill, but the in-between really isn't a thing. They're either one or the other, and kind of like an on or off switch, which I'm sure to any female or male, to be honest, would be an unattractive feature altogether. And the reason that a lot of the females I asked might have this preferential appeal to male bodybuilders is because they simply haven't experienced a true relationship with a bodybuilder, let alone anyone who's wildly disciplined in their own path. I think once you have reached a very, very rigid and disciplined tunnel vision that drives you towards this purpose or fuels a desire, you're very unlikable by most people, which, trust me, I think is perfectly fine, and I would prefer it to be that way as opposed to any other way. To be real with you, it's just creating a selective bias for you. The more people you can nix out of your life, the better that you will find people who generally align with your goals better. But I also think in part that this isn't just a lack of experience, but it's also a correlation with mental fortitude, discipline, and resilience. Because you see, to have a guy who's quite resourceful takes someone who can do lots of things that aren't fun or enjoyable and often cause a lot of suffering continuously without stop. That man is going to go a lot further than the man who likes his comforts, who likes staying in bed in the morning, who likes staying full all the time and not starving. I think what discipline represents in a female's mind is often resourcefulness, and when a man can be resourceful, a female has a fruitful life. And this is just sort of masculine feminine roles, a topic which can be highly controversial, but there's truth to the matter, especially when you look at the data, that women tend to land a little bit more towards men who have more resourcefulness because they can lean on them for future help. So there is a little bit more than meets the eye, and I think if anything, this video shows you that initially women can think that bodybuilders are attractive and that you have an appeal to the majority of females in your field. But from my experience, and specifically Bridget's, in my experience, which is actually quite a weird topic, and many of you who have been following this channel for years at this point know I went through a divorce. It was a really weird time in my life, and it was an experimental marriage in the first place, kind of a joke. And what I found is that bodybuilding requires almost a degree of mania. You have to give up sort of the normal features of life at times and sacrifice those normalities to get an extreme goal or target that other people can't do. And so initially when I entered that relationship, it was great. Everything was fine, and honestly it was a perfect, almost almost no issue relationship. But slowly, as I started to delve into business and prep through bodybuilding to get ready for my next show, I started to see hallmarks of what was an unhealthy relationship. A lot of comments about myself, my ego, and what I do that were really not nice and quite negative. But to be honest, I was being quite selfish in many ways. And as that prep continued to continue and go forward, that's where things completely fell apart. I mean, it just wasn't the same person that I had initially met, and I certainly wasn't the same person that that person had initially met because of the manipulations within the diet and body composition. I mean, my facial structure changed, my body changed. There was a lot of physical changes going on, and not just something you can look past. And so I think at face value, we post pictures and we post videos of ourselves, and maybe we post a little bit of more of the shredded pictures than we do the off-season pictures, or maybe vice versa. But it sends this imagery to the people looking at us that, hey, we generally look good and take care of ourselves. But at the end of the day, once that person actually interacts with you, molds and congeals, they start to see other sides of you that weren't clarified in the beginning. And once this does happen, there seems to be an immediate revoke of the feelings that were initially held through general attraction as compared to just love. And so the tricky thing becomes understanding that you have this feature of you as a bodybuilder that is attractive. Your body, you're building it, and that is the sport we're in. But the other features that come along with that aren't so attractive, but they're also not the ones that we represent openly as much as our bodies. I mean, you don't step on a bodybuilding stage to show off your personality, your criminal record, and what you do at 9 p.m. on Tuesday evenings. You step on bodybuilding stages to express your physique without a personality. So what is the solution to a male who is seeking a female and is a bodybuilder? Because honestly, this is a pretty hard thing. Again, I think we have the ability to initially attract, but it becomes a very big detracting factor once someone gets with another person who is quite motivated. And so I asked, again, many different females what they thought would be the best approach to this, and I actually got some really good conclusions. The biggest thing was honesty, being real with the person that you want to be with, and explaining what bodybuilding is and define how a bodybuilder would be. Not just that, but as a person that you are, what are your personal goals with bodybuilding? And that includes everything, not just leaving out a couple choice things, but talking about everything, putting it all on the table. Saying, hey, I know I'm really lean right now and we just met and things are pretty cool, but when I start eating more, my personality changes a bit and I actually get a little bit calmer. Or, hey, maybe you met me right now and I'm a bit softer. I'm gonna get leaner and it might be weird because my face might change and my personality along with it. And suddenly, for a moment, they're gonna be a little bit more reserved, but I don't mean to make that a harmful thing for you. It's just kind of how I react in times of starvation. And if you can set the standard before even getting into the relationship, that person can already realize what they're walking into. Now, sometimes that's still not enough, and honestly, I've had this happen many times to me still, but I think it's better to openly express how things might be volatile in life for you as an individual who is driven to a very hyper-specific goal, and explain all that entails. Secondly, one of the biggest pieces of advice I got from females was dating in your niche pool. If you like books, date at a book club. If you're a bodybuilder, don't date at a Planet Fitness, this isn't what I'm saying, but go to a bodybuilding gym and find someone with a similar interest. Usually those similar interests will work out quite well together for a certain period of time until you really hash out who you people are in a in-depth, very interpersonal relationship. But for the most part, you'd be better off going with a niche pool of people because they would already have this predetermined understanding of who you might be in a certain sense, because they could very well be going through the same path. The third piece of advice I got was actually really interesting, and it was expressing the meaning behind what you're doing to that other person. And what I mean by this is, let's just say I have an ice cream shop, and this is my goal in life, is to scale this ice cream shop to be a worldwide brand and recognized by Walmart, Target, and all the other grocery stores in America. But at the moment, it's just a stand, and I drive around, set it up at parks and football games locally for high schools and stuff like that. It's not really cool. If I could at least express to that female why I think it is so important and what my particular meaning is behind doing it, I think the general understanding of this obsession becomes more of an awareness rather than just a observation.
When I see a bodybuilder, I think they're dumping a lot of energy into themselves and they've got that goal, and so I just kind of look the other way.
You see, if you can relate to the emotions of a person and tie it down to the reason I'm doing this is because X, Y, and Z, maybe my childhood wasn't as satisfactory as I would have liked, and this is me sort of coming back in a revolution, and I need to do this for myself. Something of that nature. It's a lot more real and based in emotion and vulnerability than just saying I want to be a bodybuilder, shut up and don't ask me. And I actually asked my girlfriend this question, and she had a really good response, and she said,
Sexy muscles.
that I would ask myself, if I was a bodybuilder going to date a normal person, could I still win without them? And at first I thought of this as sort of like another selfish question, but I actually really contemplated this and realized that even if the answer was yes or no, it really wouldn't change a whole lot, but it would solidify one thing. Let's just say you say that you could win without this person. If they're expressing a lot of resistance in the things that you do, then possibly you need to back out of that situation sooner versus later, because you've already said it yourself. You don't need them to be successful. And that might sound cruel and cold-hearted, but if you really get down to the brass tacks of things, you're gonna die alone. You will at one point be buried in a grave by yourself, no matter what you do in life. And if you're living an unhappy life because you thought that you would love someone more than a desire to follow your passion, and you could have won without them, it's a really tough spot to be in. Now, if you tell yourself that you couldn't win without them, the next question is, why couldn't you live without them? And you have to really contemplate this. I think a lot of people would like to lend themselves to saying, well, they give me the support I need, but is there support or is there dependence? And what you might find yourself trailing down to is more of a psychological distressed state from maybe a childhood experience or something else that wasn't necessarily favorable in your past that caused trauma, which is creating this sort of dependency in you to make you feel like that you need that person to win. And if they don't support your goals and you feel like you need them to win, and you also have a great desire to do something, it's going to be a really juxtaposition. In the end, you're going to feel heartbroken either way. So that in and of itself might be an indication that the relationship may not be worth going into. Now, the last bit of advice I asked females when trying to summarize this video was, what could a male do who is a bodybuilder to make himself more attractive in a relationship, even if the sport was very self-consuming? And a really important piece of information came out of this question. Congruently across all the females that I asked, it was effort. Effort is extremely important to a female. Asking them if they'd like to come work out with you. Asking them if you could make them breakfast. Asking them even on the hardest days when you're cutting and doing hours of cardio and all the nonsensical stuff, that if you went to go to Starbucks, what drink would they like? It's the little steps and foundational movements that show you still care, even in times of coldness when you are in prep, or in a seasonal period when caloric intake is quite sparse, or in seasons where you're in a surplus of calories and all you want to do is stay at home and sleep, but she wants to go out and do something fun. Taking those moments to make small sacrifices, to put an effort towards something outside of yourself, could be all that person needs to know that you truly do still care at a very deep and intellectual level. I think at the end of the day, what's most important to know is that, one, it seems females generally find bodybuilders more attractive than general population men. Two, it seems that when females get to know bodybuilders and actually hang out with them much more closely, they start to actually have this detraction to them due to a very selfish personality on the inside. And three, it seems that the lack of effort that is applied in a relationship when bodybuilders are dating another female is the main host of problems, and that if there was more effort applied on the back end of the relationship, even in little small tasks here and there, it would do a great deal of service to the partner to stay in that relationship and understand you care during times of volatility, off season, end season, what have you. And that before starting the relationship, or you need to make sure you clarify why are you getting in that relationship. That it's not just emotional subjectivity, but you can create some objectivity within the questions and frameworks that you ask yourself by setting clear standards and boundaries, by talking and expressing the meaning behind what you do and how important it is to you, and realizing the significance of the other person in your journey. All of these things really matter, but at the end of the day, we just need to be more human and less robotic. And it seems, at least statistically, from the females that I've asked, and as well as the science that we've looked up, is that one, yeah, muscles can be attractive as a physical feature, at least an eye-catching feature. Two, the muscles and restrictions that we physically place on ourselves can be secondarily attractive because it creates discipline and therefore resourcefulness. So we have the upper hand in comparison to a lot of other people. But three, where we mess it up, is within the lack of effort and the selfishness and disinterest in another person's situation in the relationship. So if you can correct for number three on your path in this journey, or whatever fitness journey you are in that is extreme, theoretically speaking, you should make someone happy for a very, very long time. But I'm curious about what y'all have to say down below. Tell me your thoughts. Do you think that females are attracted to bodybuilders generally, or do you think, in your experience, maybe that they aren't? And if you are a female, why would bodybuilders be attractive, and have you actually spent time with one? And what do you qualify as a bodybuilder or a non-bodybuilder? And if you guys could at least give me a like, it helps me get pushed into the algorithm and grow our audience on this channel so I can afford to make better content, more quality content, and at a much, much more frequent rate. And if you guys are interested, I just made a video about a guy called the Genetic Anomaly. Gotcha. He's 20 years old and like the biggest bodybuilder at that age. He has some pretty outlandish claims, and I try to bust some myths right there. I would check it out. Until next time, I will catch you later. Deuces.